From the fiery Balrog to the hulking cave troll, Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings brought some of literature's most iconic monsters to the big screen. We saw the endless armies of Mordor, the terrifying Nazgûl, and of course, the bloated horror of Shelob in her lair. For a whole generation, these creatures became the definitive image of fantasy and terror. They are the monsters of Middle-earth. But what if I told you that the creatures that made it to the screen were actually tame compared to what was left on the page? Tolkien's writings are filled with horrors so strange and so deeply terrifying that perhaps even Peter Jackson thought twice about showing them. These aren't just beasts with fangs and claws. They are concepts of dread, beings of cosmic hunger, and folkloric nightmares that you can't easily explain. They're remnants of a darker, more ancient world, a world whose deepest shadows never graced the silver screen. Today, we're opening the forbidden pages of Middle-earth's history to look at the monsters that were just too nightmarish for the movies. These are the creatures that would have truly given you nightmares. We'll start in the deepest dark, far beneath the earth, in places never touched by dwarf or man. Here, in the primordial foundations of the world, live the nameless things. Our only real insight into what they are comes from Gandalf himself, after his epic battle with the Balrog. He describes falling through an abyss into tunnels far below the deepest minds of the dwarves, and it's there, he says, the world is gnawed by nameless things. Even Sauron knows them not. They are older than he. That statement is absolutely bone-chilling when you stop to think about it. Sauron, the great and terrible Dark Lord, is a Maya, an angelic spirit that existed before the world was even made. For something to be older than Sauron means it's a relic from a time before time, a product of the unformed chaos of creation itself. Gandalf is so disturbed by what he saw that he refuses to speak of it, saying, "Now I have walked there, but I will bring no report to darken the light of day." The wizard who stared down a Balrog, who looked into the eye of Sauron, was unwilling to even describe what he witnessed in the planet's core. These aren't creatures made by Morgoth or any other Dark Lord. They are something else entirely. Theories are all over the place. Are they physical manifestations of the discord Melkor wove into the music of the Ainur at the dawn of time? Are they twisted, malevolent spirits native to the world, much like Tom Bombadil? We just don't know. And that's exactly what makes them so terrifying. So, why were they too scary for the movies? It's a classic problem of conceptual horror versus visual horror. How do you show something that is defined by being nameless and unknowable? Peter Jackson is a master of visual terror. The Balrog's form of shadow and flame, Gollum's emaciated body, the grotesque features of the orcs. But the nameless things aren't meant to be seen. They're meant to be felt. Their horror is in the fact that they don't care about the struggles of elves and men. They're just gnawing at the foundations of the world, not for conquest or out of malice, but simply because that's what they do. They represent a kind of Lovecraftian dread, the awful realization that the universe contains ancient, indifferent forces that could unmake our reality without even noticing we were here. To put a CGI face on that would rob it of its power. The true terror of the nameless things is the terror of the unknown, and some things are just much more frightening when left in the dark, deep below the world, gnawing. If the nameless things represent the horror of the unknown, our next creature is all about the horror of insatiable, all-consuming hunger. Her name is Ungoliant, and she is the mother of all great spiders, a being of such profound darkness that she makes her daughter Shelob look like a common house spider. Her origins are a complete mystery, shrouded in the earliest twilight of Tolkien's mythology. Some sources suggest she was a Maya, a spirit from the same order as Sauron and Gandalf, who was corrupted by Melkor, the first Dark Lord, before the world began. Others believe she was something else entirely, a void entity that came from the darkness surrounding the world, a creature of pure night and hunger. Whatever her origin, she took the form of a monstrous spider, and her defining trait was a hunger that could never be satisfied. She hungered for light, and she could actually consume it, weaving webs of unlight, a tangible darkness, a void that smothered everything it touched. Her most infamous act was teaming up with Melkor to destroy the two trees of Valinor, the sources of all light for the world in its youth. After Melkor wounded the trees, Ungoliant drank them dry, draining their sap and poisoning them. She then drank the wells of Arda, which were reservoirs of pure light. As she did, she swelled to a size so vast and hideous that Melkor himself became afraid. The darkness she vomited was so absolute, it blinded the gods of Middle-earth who were pursuing them, allowing for their escape. Their partnership fell apart when Ungoliant, still starving, demanded the Silmarils that Melkor had stolen. When he refused, she, now far more powerful than him, attacked him. She wrapped the first Dark Lord in her webs, and he let out a cry of terror so loud it was heard in the deepest pits of his fortress, Angband. Melkor, the most powerful being in Middle-earth, was only saved when his Balrogs rushed in, their whips of fire driving Ungoliant away. She later infested a region that became known as the Valley of Dreadful Death before her ultimate fate was lost to history. Legend says that, in her endless hunger, she eventually devoured herself. So why was she left out of the films? It comes down to two things: scale and redundancy. First, the scale of Ungoliant is almost impossible to imagine. Shelob was scary, but Ungoliant was a cosmic horror. She devoured the light of creation and grew powerful enough to challenge a god. Depicting that accurately would require a flashback sequence that would dwarf the prologue of the Fellowship of the Ring. It would mean showing the Undying Lands, the two trees, and a battle between godlike beings. Second, from a storytelling perspective for the Lord of the Rings, Jackson already had his giant spider. Shelob serves her purpose perfectly as a terrifying roadblock for Frodo and Sam. Bringing in her mother, a creature that is orders of magnitude more powerful, would only diminish Shelob's threat and overcomplicate the story. Why fear the daughter when the mother could swallow stars? Ungoliant was just too big, too powerful, and too ancient for the story of the One Ring. She belongs to the epic tragedies of the First Age, a nightmare from a bygone era that the film simply had no room for. From cosmic horror, we now turn to a more primal kind of terror, the werewolf. But this is no ordinary wolf. This is Carcharoth, the Red Maw, the greatest werewolf to ever live, bred for one single, terrifying purpose. Carcharoth was a beast of the First Age, created by Morgoth himself. His origin is a story of pure, calculated evil. The great hound Huan was fated to be killed by the mightiest wolf to ever live. After Huan defeated Morgoth's lieutenant Sauron in a duel and destroyed his chief werewolf, Draugluin, Morgoth decided to take matters into his own hands. He took a puppy from Draugluin's line and personally raised it, feeding the pup living flesh and pouring his own malice and power into it. The result was Carcharoth, whose name means Red Maw. He grew to a monstrous size, with eyes like burning coals and venomous fangs. Morgoth then set him as the eternal guardian at the gates of his fortress, Angband. His reign of terror is tied directly to one of Tolkien's great tales, the story of Beren and Luthien. When the mortal man and elf maiden traveled to Angband to steal a Silmaril from Morgoth's crown, they managed to put the great wolf to sleep with Luthien's magic on their way in. But on the way out, Carcharoth was awake. Beren desperately held up the holy Silmaril, hoping its light would scare the beast off. But Carcharoth wasn't deterred. He lunged forward, bit off Beren's hand at the wrist, and swallowed both the hand and the jewel whole. But the sacred light of the Silmaril was a holy fire that Carcharoth's evil body couldn't handle. It began to burn him from the inside out, driving him completely insane with agony. He howled in pain and burst forth from Angband, becoming a rampaging engine of destruction. His torment was so great that he killed anything in his path, orc, elf, or man, in a blind, agonizing fury. This living inferno eventually broke through the magical barrier protecting the hidden elven kingdom of Doriath. It was there that the final hunt took place. In a fateful showdown, Carcharoth mortally wounded both Beren and the great hound Huan. But before he died, Huan fulfilled his destiny by slaying Carcharoth and ending the rampage of the Red Maw. So, why was this terrifying beast left on the cutting room floor? The main reason is that Carcharoth belongs entirely to the First Age. His story is completely intertwined with Beren, Luthien, and the quest for the Silmaril events that happened thousands of years before the War of the Ring. While werewolves get a passing mention in the films, Aragorn says the wargs are hunted by the werewolves of Sauron. There's just no room to tell the epic, tragic tale of Carcharoth. Plus, adapting Carcharoth would mean adapting a true mythological werewolf, not just a big wolf, but a creature infused with a demonic spirit. He wasn't just an animal, he was a vessel for Morgoth's personal hatred, a living weapon of doom. Showing him on screen would require a level of ferocity and supernatural dread that would make the wargs in the films look like puppies. He was a tragic monster and a character in his own right. His story is one of high tragedy and epic poetry, a tone far removed from the more grounded fantasy adventure of The Lord of the Rings. He was simply too much of a story all by himself. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Wait a minute, the Watcher in the Water was in the movie. And you're right. In the Fellowship of the Ring, the creature memorably attacks the Fellowship at the gates of Moria, a mess of writhing tentacles that drags Frodo underwater. But what Peter Jackson showed us was just the monster. What he couldn't show us was the mystery. In the book, the Watcher is a far more enigmatic and unsettling presence. Its full form is never revealed. Frodo sees 20 or more long, pale green, luminous tentacles coming out of the dark water. But its body, its origin, and its very nature remain completely unknown. The true horror of the Watcher isn't what it is, but the fact that no one knows what it is. After the Fellowship gets inside Moria, Frodo asks Gandalf about the creature. Gandalf's response is deeply troubling. I do not know, but the arms were all guided by one purpose. Something has crept, or has been driven out of the dark waters under the mountains. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world. This line connects the Watcher directly to the nameless things we talked about earlier. It suggests the Watcher isn't just some random lake monster, but possibly an emissary from that same ancient, underground world. It's a creature that even Gandalf, a being of immense wisdom and age, can't identify. It is an ancient, unknown entity guarding the back door to a dead kingdom. The film, for the sake of pacing and action, presents the Watcher as a kraken-like monster, a physical challenge to be defeated. It's a fantastic and memorable sequence, but it strips away the creature's core horror, its absolute alien strangeness. The book presents a more Lovecraftian scenario. The Fellowship doesn't beat the Watcher, they just escape it. It's still there, lurking in its black pool, an unknowable sentinel with completely mysterious motivations. Is it a guardian? A prisoner? A mindless predator? Tolkien never says. The reason Jackson likely shied away from this deeper mystery is, once again, a matter of what works on screen. Film is a visual medium. It's tough to portray a creature while also emphasizing that it's unknowable. Audiences want to see the monster. Leaving it as just a bunch of tentacles attached to an unseen, unexplained, something can feel unsatisfying in a fast-paced action sequence. The film needed a monster for a fight. The book gave us a source of deep, existential dread. By giving the Watcher a more defined form, the film sacrifices the chilling ambiguity that makes it so terrifying on the page. Jackson showed us the monster, but he couldn't show us the true depth of the abyss it came from. Our next monster is a totally different kind of creepy. It doesn't come from the grand epics of elves and dark lords, but from the folklore of the hobbits themselves. They are the Muips, and they represent a kind of horror that is more slimy and grotesque than epic. We only know about the Muips from a single, creepy poem in The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. The poem describes a journey to find them. Over the Murloc Mountains, a long and weary way, in a moldy valley where the trees are grey. Moonless and sunless, the Muips hide. The geography is a mystery. The Murloc Mountains and the Marsh of Toad don't appear on any map of Middle-earth. This places the Muips firmly in the realm of folklore, like a campfire story told to scare little hobbit kids. The poem describes them as wet, slimy things, living in deep, dank cellars. They're associated with decay, rot, and a chilling quiet. Their walls are wet, their ceilings drip, their feet upon the floor go softly with a squish flap flip as they sidle to the door. They're depicted as greedy, counting gold by candlelight, but their true nature is far more sinister. The poem warns that if you go looking for them, they will peep out through a crack, their feeling fingers creep, and when they're done with you, in a sack, your bones they take to keep. The final line is a simple, chilling warning. You go to find the Muips, and the Muips feed. So why would Peter Jackson skip over such a wonderfully creepy creature? It all comes down to tone. The Muips are boogeymen. They're ghoulish and grotesque, more at home in a collection of grim fairy tales than in the high fantasy of the Lord of the Rings. Their horror is clammy and small-scale, the stuff of nursery rhymes gone horribly wrong. Imagine cutting from the epic charge of the Rohirrim to a scene of slimy creatures with squishy feet dragging bones away in a sack. It's a completely different kind of scary that would clash badly with the film's serious, epic tone. The Muips are too folkloric, too strange, and honestly, a little too silly in their description, that squish, flap, flip sound to fit into the serious context of the War of the Ring. They represent a different layer of Tolkien's world-building, the local legends and tall tales that exist alongside the grand histories. They're a reminder that not all evil in Middle-earth is a world-ending threat. Some of it is just hiding in a wet cellar, waiting for you to knock. It's a fantastically skin-crawling thought, but probably not one that belongs on the grand stage of Peter Jackson's movies. Of all the monsters on this list, this one might be the most obscure and unsettling. They are the Carcharoth, or false fairies, a truly insidious creation of Melkor from the earliest drafts of the legendarium. Found in the Book of Lost Tales, the Carcharoth weren't monsters of physical strength, but of spiritual corruption. They were Melkor's attempt to create a twisted mockery of the elves. He made these false fairies to look just like them, but their purpose was to sow discord and mistrust, specifically between the newly awakened elves and men. They were masters of deceit, whispering lies and fostering suspicion to turn the children of Ilúvatar against one another. This concept is an early version of the later idea that orcs were corrupted elves, but the Carcharoth are arguably more chilling. They weren't a mindless army. They were a race of anti-elves designed to poison relationships from the inside. They represented the corruption of beauty and fellowship. Instead of brute force, their weapon was paranoia. So why were they never even considered for the films? First, they only exist in Tolkien's very early and later abandoned writings. They were an early idea that evolved into other concepts, but more importantly, their function is far too subtle and psychological for a movie focused on a physical war. The evil in The Lord of the Rings is, for the most part, tangible. You have armies, wraiths, and monsters. The Carcharoth operate on a social and political level. Their reign of terror would be a series of quiet conversations, broken treaties, and rising prejudice. How would you even show a false fairy on film? Would they just look slightly wrong? Would their eyes have a malevolent glint? The concept is far better suited for a novel, where you can explore the internal thoughts and growing suspicions of the characters. On film, it would be hard to tell them apart from regular elves without being super obvious, which defeats their purpose as subtle deceivers. The existing divisions between the races in the Third Age, the mistrust between elves and dwarves, the isolation of men already serve this thematic purpose. Introducing a race of literal, fake elves to explain this would just feel like an unnecessary complication. They're a fascinating what-if from Tolkien's early work, but their horror is too conceptual for the battlefield. Finally, we come to another creature that technically made it to the screen, but in a form so changed that it lost all the mystery of its book counterpart. The stone giants of the Misty Mountains. In Peter Jackson's The Hobbit movie, we get a truly epic scene. Entire mountainsides come to life, colossal beings of living rock fighting a violent battle, hurling massive boulders at each other during a thunderstorm. It's a stunning visual spectacle, but it's also a very literal interpretation of a very vague passage. In The Hobbit book, during a fierce storm in the mountains, Bilbo peeks out from his shelter and sees something very strange. He sees the stone giants were out and were hurling rocks at one another for a game, and catching them and tossing them down into the darkness. They could hear the giants guffawing and shouting all over the mountainsides. Thorin even worries they might be picked up by some giant and kicked sky high for a football. The key differences here are huge. In the book, their actions are described as a game. They are guffawing and shouting, not locked in a grim battle. Most importantly, their appearance is never described. We don't know if they are made of stone or if they are simply giants who live among the stones. They could be a race of really big humanoids, or they could be something more elemental, like spirits of the mountains themselves, similar to how Ents are spirits of the forest. Gandalf later wonders about finding a more or less decent giant to block a goblin gate, suggesting they are sentient beings who aren't inherently evil, just wild and unpredictable. So why did Jackson go with the living mountain interpretation? Because it's visually spectacular and clearly monstrous. It turns a moment of strange, almost whimsical danger into an epic action sequence. But in doing so, it loses the folkloric mystery. The stone giants of the book are a force of nature, as unpredictable and dangerous as an avalanche, but not necessarily evil. They are a part of the world's deep magic, a glimpse into the secret life of the mountains themselves. Keeping that ambiguity would have been difficult. Like with The Watcher, audiences would ask, what are they? Where did they come from? By making them literal stone monsters, Jackson gives a clear, easy answer. The film was afraid to show the ambiguity, the idea that the world contains primal forces that operate on their own terms, playing games that could kill mortals by accident. Jackson gave us an incredible battle of titans, but Tolkien gave us a fleeting, terrifying glimpse into the secret life of the mountains, a mystery that is perhaps even more awe-inspiring. From the world-gnawing nameless things to the playful, deadly stone giants, the pages of Tolkien's work are crawling with a menagerie of horrors that don't fit into neat little boxes. These creatures weren't left out of the films because they weren't scary enough. They were left out because they were a different kind of scary. They're monsters of concept, of mystery, of folklore, and of a scale so epic it belongs to a different age of the world. They represent the incredible depth and darkness of Tolkien's imagination, the shadows that lurk just beyond the edges of the map. Peter Jackson brought the nightmares of the Third Age to life brilliantly, but the most ancient and terrible dreams of Middle-earth are still sleeping, waiting inside the pages of the books. And maybe, for our own sakes, that's where they should stay. What do you think? Which of these forgotten monsters would you have most wanted to see on the big screen, and how would you have done it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoy diving into the deepest, darkest corners of Middle-earth's lore, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more tales from the legendarium. Thanks for watching.